and welcome back to Your Conestoga Today. We're here today with the multi-talented Ryan J. Antooa, a business owner and part-time faculty here at Conestoga. Ryan, how are you doing?
Really well. Good to see you.
You too.
The outfit is incredible. You're
Thank
bringing
you.
tropical energy to a very winter day.
That's my mission every day.
I really want to call you Bruce Ventura the entire interview.
You can, yeah.
Okay.
I've been drawn with some comparisons to Jim Carrey for most of my life, so that's a compliment.
You both have big personalities, which
and
is great.
And like really stretchy skin.
I don't want to know about that during the interview. Like, you can keep that part to yourself.
I can, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
So why don't we start where you want to start? I want to give you the floor right now.
Oh, give me the floor. What are we going to talk about? Not your stretchy skin. I definitely don't want to talk about that. Maybe later we can.
We can, yeah.
Yeah. But that's like our private.
Yes,
like what we do
exactly.
on Saturday nights is what we do on Saturday nights.
Yes,
But
yes.
what do I want to talk about? Design.
Design, yes.
The design industries and programs here at Conestoga. I mean, I teach in the School of Business, but I know you're here in creative industries, and I've heard amazing things about the advertising and design program here. How familiar are you with just the creative programs here?
I mean, I mostly stick to Dune Campus
Yeah.
in this wing. So just the radio, the TV programs, some esports I'm familiar with as well.
Amazing.
But I am excited to see your expertise at work right now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's two different kind of facets to my life right now, which is teaching here at Conestoga in the School of Business, and then also running Forum Studio, which is fantastic. So we do work for national and global nonprofits and charities and tech companies, building full brand identities for them. And then here at Conestoga, I teach brand strategy and social media strategy as well. So
Gotcha.
they're very closely tied and very closely connected.
For
and
sure.
It's been a pretty great experience here so far.
Perfect. Let's start with the Conestoga career right
Sure.
now, and then we can branch out. How's that?
Of course.
Good. So how did you become a teacher here?
Oh, it was really by chance.
Yeah.
So I've applied a couple times, and when I applied last year, sometime in the winter, I figured nothing would really come of it because obviously the school is very selective on who they have as staff. And I had an interview with one of the faculty members here, and she said, "You're in." And I went, "Oh my God." So then began like the fire hose of getting all the training here and kind of getting situated with campus. And then it's been a year straight, essentially, of teaching different classes, which is nice, all part-time. But it's been amazing, and I've learned a lot about teaching in general and about the students, too, who are going through, incredibly challenging times with, obviously, learning languages and learning the education and all the programming and adapting to what it's like to be in Canada as well. So it's a big, big experience for them and for me as well. I'd like to think I'm like their best dressed professor, too.
Yeah.
I'd like
For
to
sure.
think
I can
so.
tell. Yeah.
Game recognized game,
Got that right.
Yeah.
So from the way it sounded, it didn't really sound like you were really looking to teach. So what made you go for that then?
Well, Bruce, you get this as an alpha male. You know what it's like when you just exude energy that people want to be attracted to, right?
Yeah.
I think for me, I wasn't really looking for the job, but I think I developed my skills to a point where people came looking for me, which is really a fulfilling thing and really humbling as well. I've worked as a designer for years. I've worked as a copywriter for years. I've really honed my skills from both a creative standpoint and a business standpoint. Done a number of lectures and keynotes just all around Canada, and I think that developed me to a point where I seem like a natural fit to teach here. And then teaching here has also given me this sort of energy where I want to go do keynotes elsewhere and even do things like we're doing today. So I think it's less about chasing something and then having something kind of come to you naturally based on the skills that you develop and based on the experience that you go and garner on your own.
Interesting. Was there something that surprised you that you weren't really expecting when you started teaching?
How friendly the students were.
Yeah.
I figured with the language barrier that some students are experiencing, and I figured with some of the challenges that students have of coming here and adapting and how teaching is around the world, that they'd be really quiet. But students were really engaging. And I do have a funny story about language barrier if you want to
Sure, go
get
ahead.
into it. Last week, I cannot make this up. I walk into class just wearing a great outfit, and a girl looks up at me and goes, "Handsome boy." To which I went, "What?" And first of all, she's absolutely right. Second of all, she didn't mean to say that. She meant to say "nice outfit, professor," but the language translation's a little bit different.
Right.
So what it really made me realize is that whether it's in class, if it's material that we're talking about, or anything else, students are not only translating in real time, but they're also trying to learn new skills and new things in class. So it's two levels of learning, which can be really tricky or challenging for anybody. So
Right.
I think one of the things that was surprising was how friendly students were, and also their initiative and adeptness in terms of translating in real time, learning the skills, and then applying them in real life. I mean, we've had some really good success stories from school one of them is actually my student, Celestine, who took my learnings, went to Spectrum, applied what he learned, and then became a designer for Spectrum after school, which is fantastic. So there's been some really interesting and surprising experiences, both with language and students applying what they've learned in classes outside of school.
Awesome. You should put handsome boy in your LinkedIn profile now. That's your new identifier, yeah.
I mean, that's already yours, so I can't really. No, it's alpha male. I forgot.
That's true.
Oh,
Yes, exactly. You're
Alpha
right.
Bruce.
Alpha
Not,
Bruce.
not beta
I
Bruce.
like
No,
that.
no. Alpha Bruce.
Alpha Omega. Yeah.
Bruce Ventura.
Bruce Ventura.
Yeah.
And so my next question is, what does like an actual day of your job here at Conestoga look like? If you want to go through that step by step.
A lot of crying. No,
A lot of
I'm just
crying?
kidding.
Same.
Day here at Conestoga. So it starts before I get into the classroom, right? A lot of the profs here will tell you, both part-time and full-time, that there's a ton of marking, a ton of grading, a ton of feedback, and a ton of preparation that goes into the course content itself. Typically, you get a course shell that gives you the basic outline of what a class could look like.
Yeah.
But it's up to you to add your own experiences in terms of, your job and skills you've learned outside of work and platforms and program you're using to the content itself. So being a designer, teaching a brand strategy class, we'll talk about business fundamentals, we'll talk about target markets and how to engage an audience and KPIs and what engagement and impressions and all that looks like. But then I'll bring students into Illustrator or Canva or Figma and we'll go through designs together that help drive those things. So really for me, it starts outside the classroom and it begins with looking at the course shell, looking at the content, and seeing the best ways to engage students. I think the best way to do it is through activities and having a back and forth with the students. If you just stand in front of a classroom and just talk to students, they tend to zone out like anybody else would,
Yeah.
especially for a 3-hour class.
Right.
So for me, it starts with activities and it starts with generating content outside the classroom that engages them and pulls them in, and also talking about real life events that are happening that relate to branding strategy. So for example, do you know who Kai Cenat is?
I do, yeah.
The streamer. So as far as a business model or as far as being an influencer, he's completely changed how streaming looks. I oftentimes bring him into class because students are watching him and people like him.
Right.
Or I'll bring in Bollywood films or other materials that will actually engage students. I talk a lot about Shah Rukh Khan, Amitabh Bachchan, Anil Kapoor, things that students would actually know from their home countries that would actually engage them. So it starts well outside the classroom. And then obviously I come here and then just get called a handsome boy, which is like usual. You get it as an
I
alpha
do,
male.
of course.
That's just a stud of a man, you understand? So, and then I go into class and then we'll teach and we'll engage, I'll try and give breaks and really give students the room to do activities, do group work.
Yeah.
And then we leave, and then there's typically marking and feedback and grading that comes in with the content itself.
I do like how you like to bring in relatable lessons
For sure.
for the students. I've been coaching tennis since 2014.
Well, game, set, match, Bruce, I had
Game,
no
set, match.
idea.
Yeah, and so like one of the first things I was taught was to always, when you're teaching the movements, try to relate it to something that people do every day.
Right.
Like for example, when you're swinging your racket, just try to imagine you're closing a door and just slamming it basically. That's the emotion that you want to do.
For sure.
And yet that's how you relate it. So
Do you have a favorite tennis player of all time?
this is the wrong show for that. It's the wrong podcast. I could go on for hours, but I don't know. I think I like Novak's Djokovic.
Yes.
Just his antics, honestly, they get to me.
Yeah.
And he is a very talented player. When I was younger, I used to watch his videos, his practice videos for hours upon hours. And I do have to say that I think watching those just really helped my game.
Oh, yeah. The
Yeah.
Nadal Federer back and forth has been like one of my favorites of all time. Grew up watching Andre Agassi. Obviously, McEnroe, if you want to talk about antics, that is like
Yes.
the guy.
The guy.
The
And he's
guy for
still
antics.
working in tennis and broadcasting as an announcer. So
Yeah.
hopefully that's where, who knows, maybe that'll be us.
Maybe. I
Maybe.
think you've got the personality for it. And obviously, like, dashing good looks, of course.
Oh, you're too kind. You're too
Of course.
kind.
Of course. Game recognized game.
Game recognizes game. Was there a moment where you made a mistake as a teacher, and how did you overcome that and learn from it?
No, Bruce, because I'm flawless.
Yes, I can
I'm
see
perfect.
that.
I make no mistakes. A moment I made a mistake as a teacher.
Yeah.
I think there aren't any moments of distinct mistakes, but there's moments of distinct learning.
Yeah.
Which is, I've got that ADHD, I've got that FANG, so I tend to speak very fast. So understanding that students are coming in with different languages, translating in real time, and also learning new content, I've learned to slow down. I've learned to ask students questions, really, if there's understanding of what's going on, and just check in with students, because oftentimes students can still be quite a bit shy,
Yeah.
especially coming from different countries with different languages. So I'll often take times outside of class to just check in with students via email or just see if there's an understanding of the content that's going on. So I think that's been a big moment as well. But as far as like mistakes, I look at them as learnings. I know it sounds a little bit cliche, but I think
Yeah.
it's 100% true.
There's a reason why it's cliche, because it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think for me, there hasn't been one moment of like, oh, I really messed this thing up. But I think there's been little moments of, okay, how can I make this so it's more engaging and better for the students and easier to understand? And again, like you said, pulling in real life materials versus me just spouting rhetoric makes a big difference.
Yeah.
I think nowadays in college or university in general, people are looking for more hands-on material.
They are, yeah.
They want theoretical work, but they also want to understand how this works in the real world, because every student here wants to obviously get a job and get a career and meaningful work and live a happy life. So in order to do that, I try and teach them things about not just social media marketing, but how to get a job, how a resume should look, how a cover letter should look, how to do role-playing in interviews where it improves their confidence and gives them a higher likelihood of getting a job. I try and go above and beyond in that way. And I think that's one of the key learnings too, is don't just teach the course material, but bring in other experiences and things that are useful to them.
No, that's good. Speaking of my own experience, I graduated from this program around 2021, and during my co-op placements, they actually put me in charge of other co-op students.
Oh man.
So I've been managing people for a long time and coaching. When I had my most recent batch in the journalism program that came to work with me during the news, it's exactly what you said, trying to give them real industry experience. Most of them were first years though, and so that was a challenge for me. I did not know that until halfway through. Otherwise, I don't know if I was too harsh, but at the same time, that is what they're going to experience.
Yeah.
And so I don't have too many regrets about it.
The real world is challenging.
It is.
Do you have any key lessons that you learned from managing that cohort of students?
Not to get sick in the middle of it. That took me out for a week, and I couldn't manage them as well. But I think it really taught me that aside from being on camera and producing, I do still love teaching.
Sure.
I think that's my end goal eventually.
Yeah.
Maybe be a teacher here at Conestoga.
That'd be great.
But like soft skills, I think it just taught me that all the skills I've picked up throughout the years since I graduated. It was during COVID. And so for a long time, I felt like there was a lot of gaps in my knowledge, and there are still. But when it comes to like doing my other passion, which is managing people and just teaching people, there's still a lot to learn, but also I do have some good skills.
And you couldn't know everything, because that would be unfair for us mere mortals. Like you couldn't be that gorgeous and also have all the skills in the world.
Exactly.
I think it would just be unfair for everybody else, me included.
Yeah, I got to let other people have their spotlight.
You have to let us peasants just, have some time, right? So that makes sense. But I think you picked up on something great, which is soft skills. Because a lot of the times I'll tell the students, you can be the best designer in the world. And if you're alongside the other, best designer in the world, the people that will hire you because they know, like, and trust you. So character is a big thing, and being able to have a back and forth and look somebody in the eye and have a conversation is a big thing. And sometimes students are so wrapped up in Illustrator, InDesign, Photoshop, all the design programs, that sometimes they forget to look up and say, how do I engage people? How do I do an interview well? How do I, generate all the soft skills that will allow me to network and build relationships that can lead to opportunities as a professor, lead to opportunities as a broadcaster? Because again, as somebody who's oozing with personality, that's a big part of the job. Of course, the technical skills need to be there, but you also have to have the soft skills that allow you to relate to people and be approachable and likable.
Exactly. I do have a short story about a coworker
Please.
who kind of like exemplifies both sides of that story.
Yeah.
In an AV company I used to work for, this happened a few years back. One of the top guys, Dave, he had moved back to Florida for a little bit, and then the show that was happening in Ottawa at the time, the regular runners of the show, they didn't want to do it without Dave, and so they basically paid for Dave's flight back to Ottawa. So if I were to give a lesson for students, then they just have to be that knowledgeable and that likable that they're willing to pay for a flight for you just to work on your show.
That's right. People will go the extra mile if you're a character that they do enjoy working with and someone that they really relate to. I've got a fun story for you too, since we're telling short stories. this is about a week ago. I was at a networking event, and I'm typically the most charming person I know, aside from you, obviously. Like, I've got that thing. And I was at the event, and a woman walked up to me and went, "Are you a gangster?" And I went, "What?" Very British. And she starts talking to me because I was wearing this like tie and hat, and I look like a detective from like a true crime series. And she starts talking to me, and she just starts like charming the hell out of me. And I'm not used to it. And I start giggling and laughing, and I'm having a great time. And then after 10 minutes, she goes, "By the way, what's your name, love?" And I was like, "It's Ryan, I think. I don't know. I'm so kidding." Like, I was so happy.
Yeah.
And then for the first time in a long time, I realized what it was like to be around somebody that made you feel comfortable through charm.
Yeah.
Or through charisma or the energy that they bring. So not only is it about having the hard skills, like you said, and the technical skills in Blender, InDesign, Photoshop, whatever it is, but being able to have a conversation, being able to relate, being able to become someone that would be trusted to do the work as well. Because it's one thing to be technically proficient, it's another thing to be able to manage your time, to be able to communicate effectively with team members, to do all the things that you would do once you get outside of school and go into the workplace, you know?
And now, before we move on to Form Studio, talking about your arts, is there anything else you want to say about being a faculty here at Conestoga?
Do your grades on time. And I'll look directly down the barrel for this one. Grade things on time.
Yeah.
What else would I say about being faculty here at Conestoga? I think the thing that being faculty here has really reinforced with me is how much I love teaching. Whether it's at this school or doing things like this or doing other keynotes, like I absolutely love helping other people. I love teaching. I'm sure you do as well, because even broadcasting like you're doing here is a form of teaching as well. So I love, love, love teaching, and I think that'll translate to the rest of my life. So it's re-sparked and re-energized how much I love to just be in a class or be in a room and help people get to where they want to go through design or through other skills.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about Form Studio now.
Let's do it.
So how did that start? Where was the idea? Where did that come from? And how did we get to there to today?
Oh man, that's a big story. So I guess this whole story starts a decade ago. I was 23, so do the math, I'm 33 now, but I was 23 and I got a chance to move to Vancouver to be a copywriter.
Yeah.
And I was copywriting for a nutrition company, but because Vancouver was so expensive, I ended up freelance copywriting for a number of agencies.
And you studied at Guelph for nutrition, correct?
I did. Someone did their homework and their research, which is great. Yeah, so I studied for nutrition, which is kind of how I bridged that gap.
Right.
Once I was over there, I started working with other art directors, other creative directors, while I was freelancing, and I realized how much I love design after seeing what they did. To the point where I would bug all the art directors saying, "Can you show me Illustrator? Can you show me Photoshop? Can you show me all these Adobe programs?" And then I moved back here to be closer to family, ended up doing work for Movember and the University of Waterloo, and a number of other places, and then this fun little thing called COVID hit. And the whole world shut down, and obviously we had a lot of time at home, and it got me thinking and realizing that I still wanted to do my own studio and do my own agency one day.
Sure.
Obviously, COVID was a wildly challenging time for a lot of us. So COVID happened, and then my mom ended up getting sick. She got cancer, and then she passed away.
Sorry about that, Ryan.
Thank you. Yeah, it was incredibly difficult. And not to sound cliche, but when she passed, it taught me a lot about life, taught me a lot about what I wanted to do. It taught me about the shortness and the transient nature of things. And I thought to myself, look, if I'm ever going to go for this, I'm going to do it right now. So it was November of last year, almost a year to the date. I decided I'm just going to start the studio. I have a design portfolio, I have some work, but it's not nearly what it is now. I'm just going to gun for this. And against all odds, you know, against debt from, you know, the funeral time and time I took off to be with my mom, against not having any contracts in place, anything, I just said I'm going to do this. So we started in January of this year. Now we're up to 2 other staff members, which is fantastic. Work is flooding in, and I'm over the moon. But it was so incredibly difficult. And I just gave a design talk as well on year 1 of what building the studio was like, and I'm excited to share some of those lessons too today if you want to.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Congrats again on being able to start.
Thank you.
So do you want to share also just about how you're offering those photo shoots that I saw on LinkedIn? I think that's just a really cool idea, and we'd love for you to share it on camera.
Sure. Well, I'll give you the CCDTV exclusive on what this is. So I am a business person through and through. I think a lot about sales and lead gen and project management, and all those things that will keep the studio going.
Yes.
And I'm also a designer and artist through and through. I study James Jean and Takashi Murakami and Virgil Abloh and all these incredible people doing fantastic work. And I also have the hard skills and all the programs like Illustrator, Photoshop, After Effects, you name it. the photo shoot thing was interesting because December came around and I thought to myself, how do I give back in a way that's meaningful? Because we've had a wildly successful year. And how do I do work that I obviously enjoy? I've been a photographer forever. I absolutely love it. So I said to myself, I'll put out open call on LinkedIn and Instagram and say, I'll offer photo shoots for literally any amount that somebody wants. They can pay me $1, they can give me a Snickers bar, they can give me $50, like whatever it is, doesn't matter, I'll give you a portrait. I thought like a few people would sign up. 57 people have now signed up, which is amazing.
It's just a testament to how well you'll reach people.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to think so, and the value that I can offer them as well. But what I realized is that's 57 people, a lot of which are strangers, that can now come into our office and understand more about what our studio does. That then becomes a soft lead gen tool to do design work with them later. Your network is essentially your net worth, so being able to have them in office and connect with them and chat with them, it will lead to other work later on, which is kind of a brilliant lead gen tool and idea, which is don't do lead gen that costs you money, you can do lead gen that makes you money and also gives value to other people. Like pretty much everything I do with the studio now, after year one, I just want it to help other people in some way, shape, or form. I know it sounds like very Boy Scout-ish and very, hoorah-ish, but it's true. Anything I do through that studio, obviously we want to keep ourselves afloat and do great and meaningful work, but aside from budgets and finances and all that, what's above all else is just doing meaningful things that impact other people long after we're gone.
And that actually kind of speaks to me as well. When I first started being a journalist, one of the things that my mentor taught me was that whenever you do an interview, Bruce, always make sure that your subject is not just getting a free commercial out of you.
Right.
You have to make sure that there's an emotional attachment to the story.
That's a really good piece of advice.
It really is.
Do you know who Peter Mansbridge is?
It sounds very familiar.
So Peter Mansbridge is Manbridge is like a famous CBC journalist, has been doing it forever.
Yeah.
He's got this book called Off the Record, which is a stellar journalistic read. I think you'd really like it if you ever got a chance to.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for recommending it to me.
Of course.
You mentioned that you've been doing this for the past decade. How do you keep yourself motivated, Ryan?
A lot of Adderall. A lot of illegal we're drug-free here. I think I just like what I do. Like I've been obsessed with design ever since I was a kid, even before I knew what design was.
Right.
Growing up, I'd watch all sorts of videos on like Much Music and MTV, and I would see musicians and videos that incorporated typography and color palettes and all these interesting design principles that I didn't know anything about, and I knew that I liked it. And then at a young age, my dad also gave me a film camera, and I was obsessed with shooting, even before I knew what exposure was or shutter speed or aperture, anything like that. I just knew I had an eye for the visual world.
Right.
And that kept going as time went on. So for me, the influence came from a way.
Olive John?
Oh man. I mean.
Olive John?
Oh man. I mean, you mentioned fear in design. Like I think the big subject here is AI.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's true.
We've seen even big firms like Pentagram recently using AI, and a lot of people who are here nor there on it. I think my stance on it is AI should be able to automate and do the things that we don't necessarily want to do, like things around the house or like project management tasks or cleaning up our calendars, not taking the work of other people and amalgamating it into something. So ethically speaking, I have issues with like the Midjourneys of the world and the Dollies of the world because they can take the imagery of other artists and just use that as reference to create something. But then something like ChatGPT, for example, I think can be used as a research and collation tool, which is, again, automating the things that we don't necessarily have artistic license over, but can use to just improve workflow for things. So for me, it's like there's a kind of back and forth on AI because I think in some ways it's beneficial, but in other ways I don't agree with the taking of artist work and repurposing that, of course.
Perfect.
Do you use any AI tools yourself? And there's no judgment here.
So I try not to.
Yeah.
I think Dune really influenced me. In that franchise, they abolished AI entirely to focus on the human mind, which I think is a really cool idea. And it's true. I don't want to rely too much on technology. I use film cameras like yourself. And so I just have a real attachment to the past. Not so much the past events, like I'm not stuck in the past or living in it.
For sure.
It's just the tools that we used before, which I just feel is like a connection that I don't want to lose.
Oh, of course. And you know what? I didn't want to ruin the surprise, but I have a Dune popcorn bucket here for you.
You do?
I do.
All right.
Yeah, I got one for both of us, to be honest.
Awesome.
And you can put a picture of that up on the screen if you'd like to share with the audience what that looks like. It's awesome. I love Dune as much as you do, and the popcorn bucket is just like peak design.
It is.
That intern deserves a raise. For
They
sure.
do. They do.
Yeah.
Before we have a few more minutes left, Ryan, and I just
Sure.
wanted to talk about CC Mines, the episode that you did with us.
Yeah.
For CCD TV.
Yeah.
If you don't mind doing that for the next few minutes.
Sure. I mean, that was all thanks to the absolute stud Matt Vivine. Just like, again, another alpha male, just peak gorgeous, both inside and outside human being. Like, I'm just in awe typically of him when I see him. There's usually like a golden aura that surrounds him as a human being.
Yes.
Some people can see it, some people can't, but you can feel it. if
He's in the
anything, right?
control room, and I can feel it from the studio.
I can hear him laughing right now.
Yeah.
He's probably bright red.
Probably
and
is.
that's okay.
Yeah.
But that all started because Matt has this series called Humans Are All Right. And he had me on as interview episode 1, which was amazing. So the whole series is about interviewing artists and determining who they are, what makes them tick, how their artistic practice works, and just a deep dive on artists' lives. And Matt was kind enough to reach out and ask me to do the episode 1. We didn't know each other at all. When we met, we immediately bonded because we both love Japanese culture, speak a bit of Japanese. He's lived in Japan for a couple of years, and we really, really hit it off really quickly. Like, I want to talk about Akira Kurosawa films and anime and just like Japanese music all the time. Typically I can't because people don't know about those things. Matt does. So Matt interviewed me for that, and it was so good, and we maintained a friendship ever since. We have matching best friend bracelets. We're probably going to get matching tattoos.
Very nice.
Like My Little Pony type stuff after. It's going to be really sweet because that's just how much I love him. And ever since then, we've kept connected, and he asked me to do CC Minds, and I thought, great, absolutely. And it was a wonderful experience. You know, students will still come by and say that they saw an episode and that they got something from it that's helping them in their everyday life, which is pretty great.
Perfect. Do you want to just describe, like in layman's terms, what you talked about in that episode? Just like a short summary.
Sure. So I talked about the fact that an image means you exist. Now I know that's a big sort of existential philosophical statement, but
Huge.
yes, about as big as it could be. But what it really meant was that if you have a logo, or you have pictures, or you have documentation of your life and of your work, then it shows other people that you exist. It reminds them that you're present and you're there and you're able to help with whatever they need. So, you know, most companies will come to us at Forum saying they have an initiative or a campaign they want to work on. The first thing we talk about is their messaging and their strategy, but also their logo, like their mark on the world. Because if a logo is done properly, it should last 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 years, right? Think about some of the logos that we know from National Geographic or MSNBC or, you know, various places around the world, CBC, CIBC, Scotiabank, etc. Those logos have stood the test of time. So that's where the idea first came from, but it also came from the fact that we live in a sort of a content creator era where people are taking videos of themselves, videos of their surroundings, and they're documenting things 24/7. If anything, it's a record of our existence. And not to get too dark, but I think part of this also came up because when my mom passed, I thought so critically about all the videos of her and all the photos and all the voice notes and all the things that I took, because for me, that's my only way of being close to her again, is listening to her voice through a recording or watching footage of her from home movies or things like that. So the idea of an image means you exist really came from that and really came from her.
Very good. Just memories in here and on our laptops, phones, cameras. It's an amazing subject there, Ryan.
For sure.
I want to pedal back to a forum. What do you think is the most important work you've done? I wouldn't say favorite, more important. I like to differentiate those two sometimes.
That's, I think, the hardest question you've asked this entire time. You've asked some really good ones. I think the most important work that we've done might be a bit of a tie, if ties are okay.
Yes.
We did the logo and brand identity for Building Safer Communities, which is a program offered by the Region of Waterloo to help racialized folks with the resources, the training, and the know-how to stay safe. You know, especially because policing and a lot of first responder work looks different for folks who are racialized or indigenous or trans, LGBTQ, et cetera. So it was really intended as a program to give youth everything they needed to practice safety in the region, which is a fantastic one. And then we also did the logo mark and branding for the Marianne Shad Carey Center for Journalism and Belonging over at Carleton, which was a wild inquiry that just came through our inbox, and I thought, there's no way this type of stuff works. Like, forms on website work to get work?
Right.
Somebody contacted us. Her name's Nada Abeduncan. She's an amazing human being, professor, past CBC journalist, and reached out for the logo. And we did that work, and we're about to do more work ever since.
Very good.
But those two, for me, stand out because those logos and those marks will stand the test of time. Long after my passing, if that center is still in existence, students will see it and relate to it because of a mark I created, which is kind of a beautiful, brilliant thing, you know?
That's good. I think for me as a journalist, some of my most important work is just telling the stories where people really needed it. Back when I used to live in Ottawa, there was a girl who had a very rare type of diabetes. She was actually allergic to insulin if it came in contact with her skin.
Okay.
And the medicine cost like $20,000 per year, if not more. And I was so happy to be able to tell her story. This past summer, I had the pleasure of covering the first BIPOC-ran farmers market in Guelph.
Oh, wow.
That was really cool,
Amazing.
and I was so happy to be able to do that too. So it's just really interesting to see what other people say when I ask, what's your most important work?
Not only are you an absolute stud muffin, but you're also someone who's like ethical and well valued and somebody who does meaningful work too. And I think part of the beautiful thing of what we both talked about is that an image means that you exist from a design standpoint, but with journalism, telling a story means that person exists as well.
Exactly.
It sheds light on something that they're going through, and I think good design and good journalism should kind of do the same thing.
Perfect. We're nearing the end here, Ryan. I want to ask a few more questions.
Sure.
So there's lots of ways to measure success in this industry, whether it's by how much money you make, what kind of awards you win. How would you measure your own success? And do you consider yourself successful?
You're asking the hard-hitting journalistic questions here, Bruce. That's really good. You're really good at this. Yeah, I think this relates to what I tell a lot of artists who are putting out projects that we work with. So we not only work with nonprofits, but on occasion we'll work with musicians and artists who are putting out albums or books or other materials on their entire rollout in creative direction. And just this morning, somebody was asking me about their rollout, which we did, and they were nervous to put their album out. They said, well, what if it's received well or not received well? And I said, look, by virtue of putting out a piece of artwork in the world, be it an actual acrylic on canvas piece of artwork or a poster or an album that you're working on, just by it existing, it means it's successful because you've added to the ethosphere of art and design, and that's a beautiful thing. So just by nature of it existing, that to me is success. Now, whether it generates money or other things based on that, amazing, but it's kind of a bonus, you know? So obviously there's metrics that you can look at for engagement and impressions and likes and comments and all that stuff. And of course there's profit and loss statements and profit and revenue made, but there's also the subjective nature of things. So to me, just by putting out a project, it's a successful thing because whether it does numbers or not, that will allow you fuel to do the other project or affect somebody around the world. Case in point, I wrote and self-produced 4 poetry projects, all of them done in my budget, and the first one became a bestseller on Amazon, which was fantastic.
Congrats.
Thank you. And then funded the rest of them and other projects I was doing as well. But to this day, people will still pick up the book around the world and send me really sweet messages about it, and that's really, really nice.
That's good.
Yeah.
Before we end the interview, is there any pieces of final advice you want to give to designers, other faculty here at Conestoga, or just, I'm giving you the platform, basically.
Yeah, sure.
Say whatever you want.
Yeah. It's taking everything in me not to throw up the Wu-Tang symbol, which I just did, which is fine. I would share a short story and then give a piece of advice.
Sure.
Around humility and obviously not taking things too seriously. So of course I mentioned I have 4 poetry books. One of those books is actually here in a coffee shop in the city called Lucero. Lucero's great. I walked in one day and somebody was reading one of those books and they didn't know that I was the author. They just walked in and read it. And I was like, oh, this is a brilliant moment where I get to see them reading my book and maybe like ask them what they think. So I walked up and I said, oh, what kind of book is that? And he said, oh, I think it's poetry. And I said, oh, cool, what do you think? And he went, honestly, this is terrible. I was like, oh my God. Oh no. And I started laughing. The barista started laughing because they know I'm the one.
Yeah.
And it was so funny. So it's like, that things like that will happen. It's a slice of humble pie. Again, if you put out a project in the world just by its existence, I think that's a fantastic thing. Whatever comments or things happen after that is what it is. But just by putting it out, I think is success. And the other thing I think I would touch on is exactly what we talked about, which is learning the technical skills and also learning soft skills. Be technically proficient in your craft, but also learn how to manage relationships with people. Learn project management, learn interpersonal skills, improve your communication. Like, both those things together will serve you really, really well, whether you're looking to just help other people, volunteer, get into the job world, whatever it is. Both things together are invaluable.
Perfect. And before we go, folks, Little birdie told me that you enjoy playing piano, Ryan.
You did your research. This piano is beautiful, by the way.
And so this, everybody, is called a melodeon. And I would like to invite Ryan to
Oh my God.
play a few songs for us, if you don't mind.
Yes. Put me on the spot, but I'll see what I can do.
All right, so I'll move over to you because I don't want to share mouthpieces with you. I trust you, but you shouldn't trust me. And so
That's terrifying.
So I'll blow the air here, and then you can just go ahead and tickle those ivories.
Oh my God. I mean, it's small, but that's never stopped me before. Okay, see what we can do. There.
Perfect.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Thanks for having me.
And that is it for Your Conestoga Today, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember to follow us on Instagram at ccdtv.ca and follow us on YouTube as well. Subscribe to our channel. We're almost to 1,000 subscribers, and we are almost at 600 followers on Instagram, indicated by our live counter. And again, don't forget about our live raffle as well. There's the prize basket there. Send us a photo of yourself or friends watching CCTV, and you could be winning that raffle. Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. Have a good day.
Bruce and I are getting matching friendship tattoos after this.
We are.
Yeah, they're ponies.
Tune in for the after show.